Hi everyone. I wanted to share a thought on this week's parsha related to a topic in Tarsa Mishpacha. So we know that we meet Avram Avinu at age 75 after he already accomplished a lot of amazing things in the realm of holiness, tremendous amount of self-sacrifice. He was an incredible human being, but he was limited. And until Hashem said Lech Lecha to him, and he actually had the merit of following a command of God, we don't even hear about him. We do in the Midrash, but not in the Chumash itself, right? So we know that this is the foundation of a Jew, is this Kabbalah's all, that as great as we could be, when we listen to what Hashem tells us to do, we become infinitely greater. And that's why we said Nasa v'Nishma, we'll do it, and then we'll understand, because anyway, our understanding is limited. So in a Sikha from the year Nun Beis, the Rebbe is speaking about this, and then of course the foundation of a Jew and the foundation of Yiddishkeit is Kabbalah soul. But it's not enough, the Rebbe says. We have to really put our whole selves into it. So how do we do that? So this is where I want to talk about hair covering and sort of examine the Rebbe's approach to it. So for those of you who don't know, in the 1950s, when the Rebbe became Rebbe, hair covering was one of those mitzvahs that was lost. Not to say there was no one keeping it, but it was rare, okay? So this is one of the places where we see the Rebbe repaired a breach in observance. I mean, hair covering is a biblical mitzvah for a woman. For a married Jewish woman, she needs to cover her hair. It's not a custom, it's a serious mitzvah. And yet somehow it's just over the generations, through Gullus, it was a hard mitzvah to keep apparently, and people weren't doing it. So what did the Rebbe do? Well, first of all, you just see a glimpse into the greatness of the Rebbe, how he had this vision, he's going to repair this breach, and then with patience and perseverance and strategy, little by little, the Rebbe, hand to hand, person to person, helped people understand the importance of this mitzvah, and not only that, but also encouraged the sheitel industry. So the fact that we now have gorgeous sheitelach and an abundance of options and choices, and pretty much the entire Orthodox community understands that this is a mitzvah we need to keep, and keeps it, is hands down because of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe's way is so humble that a lot of people don't even realize it. But yeah, and the Rebbe really did this with Judaism in general in America, just completely made Judaism what it is today. And we take it for granted. We really don't even realize it. It dawns on me sometimes, and I'm just like, wow. But let's look at the Rebbe's approach to hair covering. Obviously, we know it's a mitzvah. It's from the Torah itself, and there's rabbinic aspects to it as well that were brought down in the Mishnah. Fine. But the Rebbe really did not focus on that so much. Of course, the whole foundation of why the Rebbe wants us to keep this mitzvah so carefully is because it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah from Hashem. And therefore, obviously, we need to do it. But the Rebbe's approach was from the Zohar. What does it say in the Zohar? That it literally brings blessings, wealth, parnasa, children, grandchildren. That's the Rebbe's approach. What, in essence, is the Rebbe saying? It's for your own good. You don't even need to have a Kabbalah soul. Of course you should have a Kabbalah soul. And if you're not realizing and understanding and internalizing that this is actually to your benefit, B'gashmi Yasser and Baruchni is fine. So have Kabbalah soul and do it anyway. But actually, it is for your own good. It is to your benefit that you keep this mitzvah. And that's really the approach the Rebbe took. When the Rebbe would sit with people, he wouldn't say, you have to do this. It's a mitzvah from Hashem. He would say, do it, because you will benefit for it. I just think it's just unbelievable. And not only that, but the Rebbe also made it an enjoyable mitzvah to keep. It doesn't have to be hard. Get the most beautiful sheitel in the world. Feel gorgeous when you look in the mirror. Just cover your hair, every little bit of it. And it's going to bring you the greatest brachas in life. And a lot of the brachas that you already have, you might not even realize that it's because you're doing this mitzvah. Sometimes my kids will say stuff to me something's going good in their life, and I'm like, maybe it's because I'm really careful to cover my hair. I say that to them. I think it's good for the chinuch. But why am I bringing this today? Because I actually just watched a class from Chana Weisberg on Chabad.org, and she was talking about hair covering, and she told over this amazing story from the Rebbe Maharash that in the 1800s there was actually a decree in Russia that women were not allowed to cover their hair. Women in general weren't allowed to cover their hair. And there were a handful of Jewish women who, even though it was most likely self-sacrifice to not listen to this decree, and they continued to cover their hair anyway, I'm assuming they felt like it was a greater sacrifice to not do the will of God. So they chose to listen to God and not to listen to this decree. And 20 years later, those women who were very careful to cover their hair, even with this decree enacted, their children were saved from the war when they had a draft, and they were drafting boys to, men, I guess, at a certain age. They were being drafted to the war, and the women who were careful to keep hair covering their sons were all saved, the Rebbe Maharash says. So may we see tangibly in our lives, because the Rebbe has said himself many times, he doesn't say something if he doesn't mean it. So if the Rebbe said it brings brachas, it brings brachas. And may we see the brachas, may it be tangible to us, and may we have the ultimate bracha of the Gula Shlema.